So hey, I'm Chris with Cycle Source Magazine.
I'm Heather with Cycle Source Magazine, and we're hanging out at Dennis Kirk today.
What is Cycle Source Magazine?
It's kind of hard to say today. You know, the knee-jerk reaction that forever was Cycle Source Magazine is a national newsstand publication that represents the American V-twin and custom culture of the United States. You know, I guess the biggest reason why Cycle Source Magazine exists is because at a very young age I was impressed with the community around the motorcycle. You know, I struggled for a way to find my place in that community and a way that I could make my life in it and still make a couple bucks here and there. And eventually had a little aftermarket shop. That led into going to the parties, and that, you know, all of a sudden I figured out I was a good storyteller. So that ultimately turned into the magazine, but only because people love to tell me stuff. I know that the secrets of this entire industry, because for whatever reason, people love to tell me things. They love to tell me things. So some of those I write down. Some of them I put in a little drawer in my office, and it's titled Last Magazine Ever. So there'll always be one more.
It may be after he's gone, but...
You know, originally, no, the magazine was not, you know, the horse before the cart. To be quite honest with you, I dropped out of high school in 10th grade. I was not very good in school in anything but art to begin with, so the magazine was absolutely not the original intention. But at the time, you have to understand, like, you know, I'm a child of the 70s, so this was, you know, going through the 80s, like the magazines were, it was so much more than what we came to know what magazines were, like through the 90s into the 2000s. Magazines back then were, for the motorcycle culture, those were our history books. You know, we didn't have popular culture and their interest in motorcycle people. They didn't care about that at all. You know, we were the scourge, we were the lunatic fringe of society. So if you wanted to know the history of the motorcycle community, if you wanted to know who was doing what and where things came from, it was all in those pages, you know. So when we finally got to the point where we could share the stories of the men and women first in our region around Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, because it started as a very local thing, when we got to a place where we could start sharing those stories, it was, you know, of course it was going to happen in a magazine.
So, Heather, where did you guys meet? How did you get involved into this?
The real story? So for a while, I was the operations manager of the Broken Spoke saloons in Sturgis, Laconia, and Daytona. And my very first real interaction with this lovely man was when he set my parking lot in Sturgis on fire. And I promptly threw him and all his friends off the property.
This is a much bigger story.
Yeah, it's a much bigger story, but that's how we first met, and we became friends for years and years and years. I was married, he had a partner.
I was Heather's best girlfriend.
Yep.
You know, like, because we worked with similar work ethic. She worked around the clock, I worked around the clock. There was so many times where there was literally just no one else awake at the rally. So we were there together and talked to each other.
Yeah, I would work, you know, my average work day during a rally was about 23 hours, literally, for a month solid. And he partied for 23 hours for a month solid. But, you know, and we just became friends, and eventually I found myself divorced, and he was at the end of his relationship, and he decided that we were going to be more than friends. Yeah, yeah, and I made him work for the relationship too. It was no easy ask on his part. It was a good bit before we actually got together.
The parking lot fire, this is the important thing. So before she was operations manager, she was head of security. This little tiny blonde woman is head of security at
Just
the
sit up
world's
straight and be bigger.
largest adult
Daycare center.
daycare center
Yep.
in the world.
Oh yeah, because I mean the Broken Spoke, when it was the Broken Spoke in Sturgis, it had a 5,000 square foot swimming pool, and the bar was 30,000 square feet. It was an airplane hangar, and you would drive your motorcycle through the bar to go park. You know, you could fit several thousand people in there all at once.
So this was also around the time that we did a thing called the Limp Mickey lot, and you know, we were all young then, and full
Dumb.
of piss, wind, and vinegar.
And booze.
And a lot of Jack Daniels. And we did this thing everywhere we went. There was mini bike races and all kind of craziness. But at the Spoke in particular, she said it was a drive-through bar. We had a whole course set up through the parking lot that went up the back ramp, through the bar, and then came out the front. Well, as you came out the front of the bar, it was a hard left-hand turn. As the night went on, the whiskey
The brown
was
liquor
flowing.
flowed.
As guys were coming around that, I would throw an obstacle out. And, you know, the first time it was water, a couple of them fell down. Second time it was a bucket of ice, a couple more guys fell down. Third time it was a bucket of gasoline, and I lit it on fire. Everybody fell down, and that's where I found out it is a $2
If you start a
million
fire.
fine to have an open fire in Sturgis.
If it starts a fire, yeah, because it was a drought year too. So,
So Heather,
yeah.
still being the head of security, came running out of the back, screaming at the top of her lungs how I could take all of my stuff and all the idiots that came with me and get the hell off her. She basically threw me out of Sturgis.
Pretty much. But over that, I mean, we became friends. I mean, his stupid stuff never stopped. I think actually it did stop. The last time it stopped, they made a huge faux pas, and I actually sat him down and pulled the mom move the next day, and I said, I'm not mad, I'm disappointed. And like literally he hung his head in shame, and I think it was shortly after that he stopped drinking brown liquor.
That was the night we flooded Faster Pussycat's dressing room and destroyed
All
all
of
of their
their
personal clothes. Oh yeah, it was a scene. But I mean, we drove a tractor trailer through the bar.
What?
You
And it's-
say
What?
you
and it's
say
the-
this like you're proud of it.
I mean, he did drive a tractor trailer to a bar. I would be too. That's pretty cool.
Okay, that's pretty cool.
The bar was designed for motorcycles to go through.
Not tractor trailers. Yes, it
We
had
looped this
hanger
truck
doors
through,
on.
And we got about halfway through and realized that the turning radius was not going to make it. And it smashed into the far wall, and there was like an old-time gas pump there. And I remember the top shooting off of that thing. It must have went 20 feet into the air. There were 60 people hanging off of the truck.
It's amazing that I still even talk to him, let alone married him, just for the record.
And here we are, how many years later?
Oh, God, that was 15
That was
years
15
ago.
Years ago, yeah.
We've been married for 8 this year. But no, so we got together and he's like, I moved down from New Hampshire, like went back and forth for a long time. I moved down from New Hampshire and I was like, well, you know, my official title is his rainbow chaser. So, you know, he comes up, he's like, hey baby, I got this
She's
idea.
just as bad as I am. You know, a lot of people that know us in the industry and stuff, they'll say, oh my God, Nick, you know, I can't believe he makes her work like that. She outworks
No,
me
I work
every
hard. Like, that's my
single day,
work
every
is my
single day.
hobby.
And about the time that she's telling me how this is it, I can't do any more than that. You know, we'll sit in silence for 5 minutes and she'll go, you know what I was thinking about?
No, that's not true. So not true. I do work hard. I do, like, work is my hobby. That is it, you know, but he's got this way of, he has this vision and his passion is infectious. Is that the right word?
Not infectious.
No, infectious.
Infectious.
Infectious. His passion is infectious. It really is. And like, he speaks on a subject and you just want to be a part of it and you want to figure out, how can I make this happen? All the while you're going, shut up, just stop it. But you can't. You can't help but help him chase his dreams. Like, you want all of this stuff to work because, like, at the end, his main goal is this community. Like, this community that is your family, and not by blood, but by choice. That, you know, when you lose somebody or you're going through a hard time or you need a part or you need to find something, they're there.
Yep.
What was the moment for you, Chris, and then, you know, Heather jumping in too, that you went, this is the thing. This isn't just some, you know, local newsletter that I've been writing about the community to keep a culture together. This isn't just about, you know, me scratching my own itch to tell these stories. This is, you know, my magazine can be or is going to be a part of a bigger thing. and we need to keep running with it. When was that moment, and can you describe maybe what that felt like and when you really discovered it?
You know, for me, it was a million little things, you know, but I can pick out at least one key moment that kind of said, hey, this is it. This is, you've kind of made it. This is going to be your life. In Maryland Stemp, you know, I'd met Marilyn and Dennis Stemp way early on, and they similarly started out of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. They started with a little fanzine thing called Iron Trader News, which went on to become, you know, Ironworks Magazine. And I always had so much respect for that because Dennis had the coolest tagline, you know, while everybody was doing all the bikini models and all this stuff, Ironworks Magazine was the thinking man's Harley magazine, you know, and like I always just thought that was so cool. And I followed him and Marilyn, everything they did, and even got to meet them way early on. They used to do those things called the Ridge Runs, where they pick an area of the country and they just go on basically a reader ride. Well, it was after Dennis had passed away, you know, and we had a bunch of mutual friends in Pittsburgh, but I really didn't know them very well. I started doing a lot of national level stuff, and I would run into Marilyn here and there. And she gave me an opportunity to write a piece in Ironworks Magazine. And I still have on my wall at home, it was my first check as a journalist. I got to write a piece in Ironworks Magazine, and at the time it was on S&S protecting the integrity of the dealer network and what they did to enforce, you know, way early on map policy and all kind of stuff. But that led to, I kind of became their, you know, their culture guy. When Hunter Thompson passed away, I wrote about it in Ironworks, and I got to do cool stuff in there, and that gave me the courage to say, well, you know, I'm doing this for them. And I started following that up with more and more work with Cycle Source and pushing it further.